Hello, it's Elizabeth Busby here, and welcome to Discerning Marriage. Today we are talking about how to date as a single Catholic when you have never had a relationship before and you feel like you're lame and weird. I get this question a lot, amazingly. Amazingly because people think they're lame and weird for not ever dating before. Not amazing that they haven't dated before. So here's what I'm going to say about this topic. Where did we get the idea that dating more makes you better equipped for marriage? I don't know, but people aren't cars. So you can't test drive relationships and it equips you to know how a relationship in a marriage is actually going to go. That's not how this works. Often when you date a lot, and especially really young, like if you were allowed to date in high school, if you dated very, very seriously in college, I'll say before you were 24 to 26. Now, I know some people get married before they're 24 to 26, and there's so much beautiful grace for them. You can have beautiful, thriving marriages, absolutely. But something we need to know is that what's called the prefrontal cortex, so it's located right here in your brain, it is responsible for a lot of things like decision-making and reasoning and looking at different things and expecting what's going to come, risk analysis. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed in a person until they're 24 to 26 years old. Women on the 24 side, men on the 26 side. So when you do a lot of dating before that time in your life, it is very possible that you have crossed emotional and physical boundaries. Now, this isn't to say you can go out and judge every person who dated early on, because there are lots of people who date virtuously early on. So never assume and never judge. However, the facts show that a lot of people, before they're in a place where they're thinking with their fully developed adult brain, feel like they're invincible, don't understand the consequences of their actions on other people, etc. And so there's a lot of boundary crossing. When there's a lot of boundary crossing, physical or emotional, there are deep wounds that are affected in the heart of the person, right? Deep wounds happen. And all of those deep wounds need to be healed. The more intense the boundary crossing, emotional or physical, the more intense the wound, the more intense the healing process. So when you have someone who is discerning marriage and they've dated a lot, they're going to need to spend a lot of time, either before the marriage or after the marriage, healing those wounds. Because as integrated people, body, mind, soul, we are deeply affected by the wounds that are done to us. And so it makes for painful, challenging dynamics in a marriage when those wounds come up, because both people likely have the wounds and then they're processing all of the interactions based on the wounds, and it's messy. Now, that is a beautiful, holy mess, right? That is a beautiful, bloody mess, just like the cross on Calvary, and there's redemption on the other end of that mess. This isn't to scare anybody. This isn't to say don't do that work. It's a beautiful thing to work together to heal wounds. But it is a thing. And when you have someone who didn't date, when you have someone who has no dating experience or very, very little dating experience, and they find themselves 25 years old plus, never having been in a serious relationship before, never really having any sort of experience, emotional or physical, that allows for, there's wounds, of course, from other things in that person's life, but that allows for a lot of freedom in discernment and in the marriage, because the two people can create a life together, in that person's heart at least, based on the ideals that they have learned, based on the ideological things that they're striving for, based on the reality in the present moment of what the two of them bring to the table, and not based on what some skis bag did when you were 18 years old, right? So you're able to live in the present moment a lot more when you don't bring a ton of baggage to a relationship. It is very rare to find two people who have never really dated before that start dating. So the odds are that even if you haven't really dated, the other person is going to bring wounds to the table. And of course, there's so much out there for healing those wounds. But I think the first thing you do when you find yourself single and never having dated and you just don't know what to do is to thank God. Do a novena of the Litany of Praise for 9 days, thanking God for preserving you from a lot of heartache and a lot of woundedness and a lot of brokenness, and reframe in your mind that this is not a bad thing. Like, I'm not a weirdo who just nobody ever liked. No, like the Lord was preserving me for this situation. I actually have seen a lot of situations where you have one person who was really preserved and one person who had a conversion. So they had a really sordid past with lots of boundary crossing and lots of wounds. And then they had a reversion and the two of them get together. I have seen the Lord work that story a lot because it allows for a lot of space for the deeply wounded person and a lot of gentleness and compassion because the other person doesn't have as many of the kind of relational, physical intimacy, emotional intimacy type wounds. So the Lord can write the most beautiful story with literally any pencils. So there's not one that's better or worse than the other. They're just different. And when you attach a label like weird or lame onto someone, then that makes that one seem worse. And it's not worse. It's just different. And there are a lot of beautiful things you bring to the table. The other thing is that I want to say, the second thing is I want to say, don't let that keep you from pursuing a relationship. A lot of times you can think like, oh, I'm not good at this. I've never done it before, so I don't know what to do. And that can cause you to withdraw from the dating scene. Don't do that. Work really hard to take courage and to engage in the dating scene. Even if you don't know what you're doing, it's probably going to be fine. Don't feel like your lack of experience means that you're not going to make a good spouse. There are so many beautiful things you're going to bring to the table with a lack of experience. And my deep hope is that this next generation of people who are coming up are going to be raised in a culture that allows them to maintain the integrity of their adolescence without having to grow up too fast. And so they won't have to be dating really early or feel like they have a lot of pressure to be in relationships or get into really deep emotional and physical relationships really early in adolescence. But there will be a lot of freedom in recognizing like we're going to preserve dating for when we actually think we want to get married, and then allow the maturity that comes with that realization in your mind to really guide the decision-making process for how you enter into a relationship. But time will tell. We'll see. So all that to say, please do not think that you are lame or weird. Reframe that right now. There's rich beauty in what you bring to the table in your preserved state, and thank the Lord for the gift of being preserved because there's a lot of hardship and suffering that you are going to get to avoid now that you are in this preserved state as your discerning marriage. So I hope that was helpful. Until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.